Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm Knives Monroe. How you guys doing? Hopefully, you're doing well. With me today, what is it? 3 days after Christmas in 2022. Probably the last time we'll get to pod is none other than Trent Knox. Trent, how you doing?
Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone listening and tuning in to the video or the audio. And I'm doing great, man. I've got a little bit of a stomach, bug from the holidays, but we're rocking and rolling.
Yeah, dude. It's good to see you. It's good to hear you. Did you get an interesting gift for Christmas?
Um, hmm, let's see. It's one of those years that I got a bunch of duplicate gifts. Like I did the whole Amazon shopping list thing with the family, so people bought the same gift. So it's gonna be a little bit of a return session going on here soon. I haven't yet had the muster to go out there to UPS and drop off the whole thing and do that whole gamut. But I mean, as far as it all goes, like it seems like there's no more chilling in my family. So that was pretty much the final year of like multiple giving. I think next year we're gonna do like a secret Santa type thing where we pull a name out of the hat. But this year, yeah, it was interesting. Almost felt like there was maybe too many little gifts and things we did because it took a whole like 2 hours to do the whole thing. And, I ended up getting, um, I think the thing that I'm using the most is like this little sound activated lamp. It like adds a little color to the room. It's nice.
Very
It's like a
nice.
lava
Very
lamp of the
nice.
future.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
That's lovely, man. Well, I'm happy to hear that, and Merry Christmas to the listeners as well, and Happy Holidays, and all that politically correct stuff.
hmm
Speaking of politically correct stuff,
Oh, you heard Nancy Pelosi say "Happy Shawarma"?
did she? No, that's so
Yeah.
exhausting. That's so exhausting. No, I did not hear that. Um, I wanted to get you on the pod to talk about a topic. I have a topic for today, and I'm not the
Oh
topic
God.
guy. Yes, I have the topic, and that's you've heard the expression "nice guys finish last."
Uh huh. Uh huh.
What are your thoughts on when it comes in the context into a persona online? We all have a persona, we all have an avatar, we all have a brand. What are your thoughts on being an asshole online as a way to succeed? And I'll put it to you like this. So I don't know I don't think I've ever asked you what your first impression of Gary Vaynerchuk was. But my first impression was this guy's a dick. This guy's an arrogant douchebag. And the more you consume his stuff, you realize, oh, he comes off really abrasive. He comes off really harsh. But he preaches about empathy and compassion and yada, yada, yada. Oh, okay, cool. He's kind of like a, a tortoise in like a hare's clothing, right? And so I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of the energy that I want to bring online to 2023. I've swallowed the pill. I think I've accepted that like I'm not what I would refer to in the wrestling sense. I'm not a baby face. I'm not the let's go get him guys. Woo! Come on. Yeah, let's go get him. Like I think I'm not that actually. I think I'm more of a bad guy. I think I'm more of a heel. I think I'm more, and you know me pretty well. I think I'm more of a Slytherin in the guise of a Gryffindor. But I'm not a Gryffindor. I think I've always been a Slytherin, and I think I've put in so much effort and energy in kind of trying to mask the edge to my knife, so to speak. Look at me using knives puns. And so I wanted to get your thought. You know, we live in a world now where controversy creates cash. And I've been beta testing some blogs instead of being like, here are 3 tips where you can make a movie. Real babyface white meat, kind of like, you got it. It's 10 reasons why you'll never make that movie. And that post got way more engagement. And I'm like, people love negativity. People love this sort of cycle of why they can't do something, you know, why they're stuck. Now, deep inside all these things, I am an activator. I do want to flip the switch in people, and I want them to be inspired, and I want them to actually go out and do something and understand their own power, recognize that they're a giant inside, and I do want them to go out there and crush it. I do want that. So, like, I'm a tweener deep down. I'm a heel and inside a babyface costume, but that's actually a fucking douchebag. But that's actually has a heart of gold. Like, I feel like I'm all those. I am bipolar after all, so there is this polarization of like these two devils inside me, this angel and demon that rip me apart. So I wanted to get your thoughts. Where would you start?
The two things that came up to me were that you either die a hero or live long enough to be the villain. And I think that's probably where you're at. That's the old saying, right? I think right now that's case in point with the whole Logan Paul thing. He kind of got turned into a villain, you know, with the whole Japan Suicide Forest thing. Has been WWE, just recovery, kind of like rebranding kind of thing. But then, boom, he's now scamming his fans again, stealing money away, you know, and trying to get people to buy into some sort of what do you call it? Whatchamacallit?
A Ponzi scheme? I'm not sure.
Ponzi scheme. Yeah. With the whole NFT video game metaverse thing. So you asked Gary Vee. That was another thing. My first impression of Gary Vee was this person is motivational and I'm in a slump, and what he's saying seems like it could be a potential problem-solving behaviors. And so I felt like, you know, if I implement these behaviors, then they'll solve my problems. You know, I think today it's like, well, you know, they didn't solve my problems overnight, and it's always a thing like where the hustle porn gets into the whole thing. It's like, well, you know, you work so hard and you never see like that full transition, and then you're kind of like back into this despair state and depressive mood where it's like, oh, okay, well, those things are kind of like, they're good on wax, but in reality, like, there's no one size fits all or one thing solves every single problem type thing. So then when I first get the impression of someone that is an asshole online, I have to wonder where they're coming from. At least I give them the benefit of the doubt to be like, well, where are they coming from? What was their upbringing? You know, there's very few people online that I think are like genuinely bad guys because they come from like places of, you know, socioeconomic space where they should know better. Like, there are people who should know better than to behave in such a way. Like the SBF thing, Sam Bankman-Fried thing. You should know better than to scam, you know, millions of consumers by, you know, getting them to buy into Ponzi schemes and like fake money and you know, not to say that crypto or all this stuff is like a scam, you know, because there is some utility to it, but with those people who come from affluence that are just like scamming folks, it sucks. But like a true asshole really
Well,
is like,
how do you think that you respond? How do you respond to the tone of a persona online? Do you relate to or identify with or am more engaged with a persona that is, so, you know, a wholesome person, or somebody that has a sort of darkness to them, a sort of edge? I think narratively, aren't we more attracted to the Voldemorts, the Sith Lords, the Slytherins? Like, narratively, don't we identify with like the Terminators, which in the first picture he was the bad guy in that movie. He's the antagonist. Don't we
Mhm.
identify with like the the Michael Myers, the Freddy Kruegers, the sort of antagonists, the anti-heroes? Like don't we love Thanos and Loki and all these characters that are supposed to be quote unquote bad versus your Steve Rogers, who's wholesome and has all the right answers? I don't know. Like, what do you? I feel like there is that dichotomy online. There are people
Mhm.
who have that edge in their messaging, and then there are people who are super wholesome and just like, golly gee, go get some, you know. And I wonder if that impacts their metrics. What do you think?
There are very few bad guys that get their own movie. Like I guess Venom is one,
Joker,
Joker is one,
the
but
Punisher.
Joker's like public persona was kind of turned around to make it to be something that's more palatable. I think in general Joker, like the traditional Joker doesn't get a movie, you know. But the relatability of the Joaquin Phoenix version of Joker I think is more taxi, driver
Okay.
type movie. Yeah. So like the really really bad people out there online, like if you I don't see, and this is like somewhat counterculture. I don't see an Andrew Tate as a bad guy. I don't see I see Liver King as more of a bad guy than I see, Andrew Tates of the world. Um so I think it's challenging. Do I find myself attracted to um to really bad people? I don't know, because it wasn't the Voldemort movie; it was the Harry Potter movie. I think the trend is for people to be admiring and infatuated with the good guy, at least the
But then
so-called
there's
good guy.
shows like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or shows where like it's sort of an anti-hero figure where this guy's bad, but
Hmm.
but we love him for whatever reason. So I do think there is at the very least a macro morbid curiosity of these figures. No,
Well, do you think that that's because people are hoping that they don't accomplish their redemption arc, like that they want to validate the fact that they're bad guys,
I think
or they want to
people
see them become good guys?
maybe. I think people love the gangster film. They love the Tony Montana. They love the say hello to my little friend. Brrr. People love that. I'm not
Hmm.
exactly sure why, but I think they prefer the crash and burn, maybe. Like Logan Paul has been, what's the word? I don't want to say a bad guy. And I know we're talking in binaries. I know there's really more a
Hmm.
gradient here that I want to
Hmm.
explore.
Hmm.
I use the bad villain sort of heel bad guys in a more carny sense, where Michael Jordan was an asshole. People loved Michael Jordan, right? But like on the field, he was terrible to work with, right? Terrible to work against, like in a competitive spirit sense, right? So, but people identified with that, and that guy was the biggest sports star of all time, probably. So, I guess what I'm saying is, me personally, the reason why I bring this up is this was sort of a juicy. This had meat on its bones for me for a topic to explore because I wonder. I'm personally, full disclosure here, going to take YouTube very seriously, and I want to be able to be monetized by the end of next month. So I have a lot of growth to do, and I wonder if in my approach, I think I'm holding myself back because I really just want to be a little more angry, and I think I censor and stunt myself from being as angry as I want to be because I'm afraid of what that might mean if people are like, "Oh fuck this guy, I don't like his tone." I have fought against that. You've compared me to a cold shower before, and I take that with pride. I'm like, "Oh cool, I'm not offended by that in the slightest." Um, and I wonder, should I bring that cold shower approach to my content almost in an antagonistic sort of character way. And will that turn people off? I suspect it actually won't. That's where I'm coming from right now. What are your thoughts as a follower, as a consumer, as a subscriber, as a patron of these personas and these figures out there? If you audit them, not in a moral standpoint, are they bad, as in they're doing bad business, but like an antagonistic sort of feature, an antagonistic sort of person, that feature inside a persona. Like, would you rather subscribe to someone that says something with a sort of abrasive tone, bringing some anti-hero, anti-authority or something energy, or do you want the Steve Rogers Captain America, like this is good type of babyface person?
Yeah, I can only reframe this in first a question is like I really don't know what people do if they're not watching live video. Like I don't understand how people can put together a full day of content consumption on post-produced video. Like other than watching like every Harry Potter movie back to back, or like, going to a YouTube playlist of their favorite content creator. For me, I need that in the now feeling that I'm still gaining some form of like what's happening, the what's happening component of like being in the know. And so like with my favorite content creators when that in that context, come from the Twitch hemisphere. And I would say that I've never been necessarily a fan of the people who get banned off the platform and get like, see, Dr. Disrespect is not one of my favorite content creators. He doesn't even rank in the top 10. But I do find myself attracted to the people who skirt the line, right? Who are like, they possibly could get banned, like they're on the edge there. And I feel like, those people are champions because they're sort of like, I don't know how to explain it, but able to get the microphone that I don't believe I can get, that I haven't gotten, that they have it for whatever reason. Like they highlight all these contradictions and ways that the platforms basically rule on their laws in such a way that it almost gives what in my mind are the bad guys more power to hurt people. But then the people who they deem as bad, which I don't deem as bad, ultimately like a Dr. Disrespect, get removed from the platform so that they can't participate in public discourse or what have you. There are people who I do think are really controversial, like an Ice Poseidon, who I don't think should be banned on platforms. It just doesn't. The thing that they did was push the boundaries on art and culture and things. And yes, they might be kind of trolly or they might be hurting the pocketbooks of the affluent, or Robin Hood. Like Robin Hood, he's a bad guy. Like he's a bad guy, right? He stole from the rich and gave to the needy. Like
He's a bad guy to
that's
the
a
bad
bad
guys.
guy, right? So like, these things are like,
I feel like comedians that are so successful now in new media, right, with podcasts and micro clips and the Andrew Schultzes, they're bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, aren't they? Like, to the status quo. And once again, when I say bad guy, I mean like anti-heroes.
So we're talking about the Mike Tysons. We're talking about.
I'm talking about stand-up comics, right? Like the Andrew Schultzes, the Tom Seguras, the Joe Rogans, the Mark Marons, the Mark Normans.
Yeah, sorry. I went down back to sports because it was stuck in my mind. I was comparing basically in my mind Mike Tyson versus um what the fuck is the dude's name that killed his wife in the Ford Bronco?
I don't know.
Kim Kardashians were developed because of them,
Okay,
because
OJ.
of him. OJ
OJ.
Simpson, right?
Yeah.
So like it's almost interesting because I find the Kardashians to be worse than OJ. Like if we were to put on trial OJ versus Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians, I think Kardashians should be thrown under the jail, right? And a lot of the reasons why that well, not even, I should say, the Jenners as well. The whole conglomerate should be thrown into the jail. You know, he killed someone by running him over with an SUV, and then, you know, or she or whatever, like that.
Yeah.
I think the detriment that family has placed on the youth of today and even the adults of today is more damning than one person being murdered.
So
Like,
take that antagonistic energy, right,
yeah,
and keep it in the Kardashian context. They're the most
yeah,
popular. They're the most popular family in all of
mm-hmm,
media. They're the most
mm-hmm,
powerful family in all of media, and they're not
mm-hmm,
without their drama and controversy. If
mm-hmm,
they were wholesome white meat baby faces, I
mm-hmm,
can't think of a better expression. I
mm-hmm,
don't know if they'd be as popular, right? I don't know if they'd be generating as much eyeballs, right? So
mm-hmm.
people like that, do they not? I feel like I'm late to this.
Yeah, there's a nuance of it being like that. They are a minority, and any like judgment on minorities in today's day and age is some sort of, thought crime that you're committing. Like them being like of I think Persian descent or something like that. Robert Kardashian, I don't know, being like some sort of minority. It's some bad nature to it that you can't say anything bad about them, and that they'll murder you if you speak out against them. Like, either in the public discourse through Kanye or like through running them over with an SUV. I don't know, man. This is a very interesting
If everybody
thought
that is a
experiment.
content creator, that is a brand, that is a one person business, that is a small
Right.
business, if all these figures in the creator economy, let's
Yeah.
just say, if they had a mascot, and would it behoove them to have a more controversial mascot than a wholesome, perfect, doesn't swear, doesn't curse, makes content for kids sort of mascot? Like which ones which one does your Gen Z like want to sink their teeth into? Like there's a edginess and a reverence that people admire, right? Like in the
Hmm.
mainstream. Isn't this not rewarded?
So like for Twitch, they have a mascot. It's called Glitchy, and or Glitch or something like that. And so it's interesting because there's a negative connotation to what a glitch is. It's like a cheat in some cases. It's an ability to get one over on someone. So what in the case of like, a baby face or like a heel, what happens when the heel gets over on a baby face? What happens when the baby face gets over on the heel? Like, what is the consequences on the greater diaspora or like
Right.
conversation of what wrestling should be?
Okay, so let me
So
answer that. Let me answer
isn't
that
that
because
what?
it's actually interesting. So when the bad guy wins, when the heel wins, this creates a controversy. This creates a, oh no, man, the babyface got gypped. The babyface got robbed. This is bullshit. And so you pay. It's a dot dot dot. The story continues, and you pay for the next event for that bad guy to get his comeuppance, so he can lose. It's all about that journey of that big loss. On the babyface side, it's it happens once every 5 years, sometimes 3 years, where the babyface, the John Cena, the Superman, finally wins, and it's like, yay! Oh my gosh, he did it! The Superman saved the world. That's amazing. But then there will be a stagnation 6 to 9 months where it's like, okay, we're watching Superman win, but we want that villain to come out and kind of take it from him because that's what creates cash. That's the draw, right? In wrestling terms. But I think, like, using that Superman analogy, and I'm glad you brought that wrestling context up, I think people are more drawn to Batman than Superman today. I feel like your Christopher Reeves Superman take, wholesome, Boy Scout, doesn't work today with modern audiences. They want the Batman tortured soul listening to emo music. Maybe not everybody likes that, but they like the brooding, beefcake, charming, rich billionaire, tortured soul dynamic, right? Dichotomy. Like, don't people want that and his array of twisted supervillains more so than Superman saving cats from trees?
I saw
Which
a
one? Which one
clip
creates more
of
cash? Which one creates more clicks? That's, I guess, my macro question, really.
yeah, I saw a clip of I think it was Method Man talking about the MCU and talking about how he was talking to Idris Elba about the fact of black superheroes and black villains, and that there and I'm gonna work this from the perspective of the those in power down to what he's saying as far as like what who is actually the consumer and how do we characterize the consumer enough to say what do they want. So like from the perspective that the MCU thinks is that black people should just get in line and just take what's on the table. Those are the options. Just do that. Play the black superhero characters that we've already created. Whereas the black community with, spokespersons like Method Man and Idris Elba speaking that they don't want to no, that's not the right word. I guess they don't want to reimagine is not the right terminology here, but I'm going to use it anyway. Reimagine a James Bond as a black superhero. They'd rather go out and create a brand new universe, like
a brand new brand, a brand new IP.
a brand new brand IP with characters that embody their realities. Not the perception of what those in power deem as good and bad, but what they see in their own environments and cultures as being, topics of discussion that should be associated with superheroes and supervillains, and then that sort of competition. But it's not always, that well organized, because even they're like even Idris Elba and Method Man realize that there are characters that that they grew up with within this paradigm of those in power. Let's just say it: the white people versus the black people, and how black people have seen themselves in those characters, like even a Carnage, or like people of I forget what the specific character that they were talking about was, the people who brought the Avengers together. Even
Nick Fury.
Nick Fury, right? So like that they don't necessarily want to fight the system to the point at which they're not included in the current establishment. So it's like, if you do separate yourself from this whole dynamic of humanity in the bigger picture, it becomes divisive in the opposite direction. What's most challenging, I think, is like issues like, that the Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, the if you play a certain game, like you get you get treated differently if you identify in a different way. So I think that the Method Man's pushback or Idris Elba's pushback is if I was Bond, I'd get treated like a white man. Like I would be no longer treated like my own community. I would no longer be, you know, a black superhero. I'm just a superhero. You know, and so removing that sense of identity or adopting someone else's identity, I think is very challenging. So my question back to you would have been like, at what point does the baby face become the heel? Like, when do people turn on the thing and say, oh, this guy was never a baby face. He was always a heel. And then they just rewrite history as this person never having been a baby face. Like
That happens.
How did Steve Austin get to the point that he still stands as like a good guy? You know?
That's because he fought the boss. He fought against the system at large, right? It was a middle finger to his boss, and he would give the Stone Cold Stunner to his boss and come out with a beer truck, and just every week was a new shoving it up your boss's ass, and everybody lived vicariously through that. He was a good guy by default, even though he was like getting arrested like every week, right? At one point, things of that nature. So it does happen, and it happens in the inverse as well, where you have a bad guy who's super sympathetic, and you get his villain origin story. This happened on AEW television semi-recently, and he tells the audience at the pay-per-view, I'm going to win. And everybody thinks, oh, this is going to be his moment where he turns into a good guy. It's a turn. You need the turn. It's good for business. It rejuvenates the product. And then he wins in a dastardly evil way, and he's the devil, right? And it's like, the turn was a double turn where he did not turn. That's the twist, right? And he stayed the bad guy. But people were already ready to recontextualize the last 3 months as, wow, he's been a good guy this whole time. Look. Wasn't true, right? He played the internet in that way. And this guy's very successful right now. This villain, heel, bad guy, very successful. But I personally, in my persona, don't want to be a bad guy, but I also don't want to be kissing babies either, even though I love babies. I don't want to, I'm not a politician per se, but every persona on the internet, every mascot and on the content creator culture, creator economy, everybody sort of is one or the other, and a politician, I mean. And you're either a good one or a bad one, rooting for your cause, trying to sell your products, hawk your stories, whatever it is you're trying to flip. And I think trying to do it like the Superman wholesome Boy Scout way has ran its course for me. And I think I'm ready to sort of indulge in my angrier, more bitter, jaded sort of side that people will, first impression, might read this as like, oh, this guy's an asshole. He must be a jerk, da-da-da-da-da. But the more you consume me, the more you realize, oh, he wants the little guy to win. He's one of us, right? And I'll let that play out. Sure.
Let me ask you, who do you define as your enemy? And are those people your enemy?
I'm my biggest enemy, man. I'm my own worst enemy. There's nothing that anybody can say or take away from me that, like, my own depression can't take away from me. There's nothing that anybody can say that my brain hasn't said that bullies me as far as my relationships and with people. And I'll just say it, women in the past, like, that have deteriorated have happened because of my own psyche, my own depression, my own mania, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like I'm my biggest enemy, and every day I wake up and I have to fight myself and compete with myself to win, and I'm fighting like the lesser version of me every single day, and I'm trying to rebuild, redesign, reform, and be reborn every single day against myself, man. Like, versus the system, versus the machine at large, versus the YouTube algorithm, whatever. Like, there's no bad guy, or there's no nemesis that I have that's more damning than myself. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for.
Well, let's just go down this route, because what's weird about it is your attention is then redirected at yourself, and it's sort of like a very okay. I'm just gonna say this first though. It's like you have to create content about how you as an individual are beating your own worst enemy, which is you.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I think so. I think
if,
so.
but that's only if you're the good guy. Now, what if you are the bad guy? Then you need to figure out how you incentivize the bad person inside of you. What can you do to incentivize that? You know, the tale of two wolves. We have, you know, two inner wolves, one that wants to do the good thing and one that wants to murder the babies, right? So how do you kill as many babies as you possibly can? Now, that's an term of an endearment in the screenwriting world. You must kill your babies, right? So that means that you have to go out and be your authentic self.
Yes.
And cry in public, right? You have to raise your efficacies, but what's going to end up happening is, like, I feel that I've done that, you know, but have I done it enough? That's where that Gary Vee comes back. Am I doing it enough? Am I living in public enough?
Have you done it on a long enough timeline consistently at a high quality enough? Yeah. Yeah.
Am I going to, but then the seed in the back of the head is, if I do, will I still be sad inside? At the end of the day, is it going to bring me happiness, or am I going to kill myself along the way through depression to end up being like without the reward? Like the
on that note, it takes, as an adult growing up, becoming an adult.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to realize how sad and depressed you've been. You waste a lot of time figuring out, man, I've been sad and depressed for a long time. And it takes even longer to realize it doesn't have to be that way. So on that note, like, the faster we can all, this is where I am a good guy, and this is what I genuinely believe, even though, but I just think, like, I'm a good guy in the body of a fucking Slytherin. That in the Harry Potter sense of, like, that's the house I belong to, is the bad guy house, the house that Voldemort went to or whatever. I'm a bad guy, right? And I've always battled with that, even with my family. I've always been like, kind of like, you know, you bring that energy, you know what I mean? You're not one of us. And it's just like the black sheep. Indie Darlings. Indie Darlings was like, us black sheep are going to win, right? But it comes from it's a good thing. You mentioned Venom earlier. I fuck with Venom. I am Venom in a lot of ways. Like, I'm the anti-hero. Like, I will eat the bad guy, but I don't fuck with Peter Parker either. Like, I am Venom in a lot of ways. So my inner good guy, babyface Boy Scout tells you that, you know, yes, it takes a long time to realize that we've been depressed and we've battled with this, but it takes an even longer time to realize it doesn't have to be that way. And so I would encourage you to believe in the process.
Ooh. Would you rather be forgiven by your Lord and Savior or forgiven by the public? Spider-Man is not forgiven by the Lord and Savior. He's forgiven by the public. He continues to make mistakes that negatively impact society, but continues to get bailed out of the things that he does. But he still isn't, forgiven by the universe because he continually makes these mistakes, leading to a Thanos, leading to, these issues being present. And I think what's interesting about what you were just saying there is like, well, what is society doing that's making people so happy that the content that you're creating, if it's black and white, is making people depressed? How can you create content that's making people happy versus empowering their depression?
How can you make? I don't want to empower anybody's depression. That's for damn sure. But how can you make edgy content that has a good message, that as a shock to the system, that wakes people up, that inspires people, that moves them, that causes them to act and take massive action? How do you create that kind of content? I don't think you do it
Hmm.
by just positivity. I think you need that inner venom. I think you need that because you're going to get misinterpreted no matter what, even if you are Captain America. You know,
Hmm.
me and my brother had a real life fallout. A real life. We didn't talk to each other for a few years. And one of the ways that we kind of contextualized it for each other, we're okay now, we're on good terms, is he was Iron Man, Tony Stark, and I was Captain America, Steve Rogers, in Civil War, where we just did not agree on this one thing. We just did not see eye to eye on this one thing, and we kind of had to move apart from each other. And in the end, though, Captain America was right. And to not sign those accords where the government controlled the Avengers, he was right in the end. And those got appealed later that you would find out in the story. It gets appealed. So it's like Tony Stark was wrong. But Tony Stark was hurt and he took it so personally, right? So no matter what, people are going to, you have to let these things play out on a long enough timeline, right? Like with Gary Vee, we've now had 10 years of Gary Vee where we can say, oh, like ultimately he is a good guy. He's got a wholesome spirit. He does curse a lot and swear on stage and says, fuck this, you should work harder, that kind of stuff, which sounds like bad to people's ears. But on a long enough timeline, like people know what that really means. And I think people need to hear that in an abrasive way sometimes. And I think I'm ready for my art to be a little more abrasive. I've been trying to make this homogenized, pasteurized, safe art that comes from a really like a spineless place. And no wonder I'm deeply, deeply dissatisfied with the results that I've come from it, But I used to be a little edgier. I used to be a little more challenging on the internet. And what do you know? My numbers were moving up because of that. Because it was polarizing. People either followed me because they wanted to hate me, which is fine, or the other side agreed with me, and they saw this almost vigilante-esque sort of person. This one guy made a video about me. This is like in 2009. He compared me to the Crow, and he was like, "I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing, Knives. Like you're almost using yourself as bait to attract this negative energy, so you can challenge it, so you can make your point. You know what I mean? Like that's your bat signal." And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool that someone saw that. I didn't even know that I was doing that until someone presented that to me. So you have to let these arcs play out for sure. Deep down, I have nothing but positivity to really offer. But I think the content that I've seen work the most with the marketplace is a little more challenging, edgier, sharper content. It's all about the packaging, and I think people want that edgier packaging now more than ever. Look at Deadpool.
Weird.
This guy who Deadpool resonates with millions of people more than Superman does today. When Superman was like this figure from the Great Depression that emerged, people needed a Superman. Now people need a Deadpool to say, cut my arm off, I need to feel something. But it's positive. He's not a bad guy, right? He's not, he may shoot people in the head point blank and pluck out people's eyeballs or whatever he does, but he's not a bad guy deep down. And I think we live like in this post-Deadpool sort of Rick and Morty-esque kind of world where this is how we communicate comedy. This is how we communicate empathy. And it's done in a framework that is post-nihilism in a way, which is counterculture, but it's mainstream.
I think it's I think it's way harder than ever, even though I feel like I never was able to express myself when I was a child. I felt that the expressions that I made then were so counterculture, but today that if you make expressions that are traditional, you are counterculture. And it's way harder to express yourself today than ever before. And not be categorized into a demographic that you may or may not um, identify yourself associated with.
You really
And
have to own that, right? Like you kind of have to own the sword that you want to die on, the hill that you want to die on, your perspectives, your the
you
culture
definitely
that you
have to
come
own
from.
it.
You have to own that. And I don't
You
think
either
that we
don't
get to
do anything or you do the most.
apathy is a solution for a lot of people, right? Doing nothing is a
Hmm.
solution for a lot of people. But for the doers and for the people who want to make a dime in this business and for the people who have the audacity to be entrepreneurs or business owners or people like us, people who want to thrive in the creator economy, apathy is not the solution. Apathy is the thing you have to fight every single day. It's so
Well,
easy to
isn't
just stay inside. I heard this quote. It's so hard to get out of bed when you're in silk pajamas. And
yeah.
there is a sort of there is like a and, you know we live in a Western civilization, consumerist, capitalistic society where like everybody wants the silk pajamas, right? But then it's hard to get out of fucking bed and get after it and go to work and do all the shit that you need to do it. So you really have to own. You have to own your identity. You have to own the culture that you come from, that you represent, et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to make you stand out, and you are going to get lumped into a box and say, oh, you're one of those. You're like that, right? So this goes back to tribes, something that you and I have talked about quite a bit. And I don't want to deviate from the topic of the conversation, but you really have to. If you start off as a tribal one, I think you'll attract more like-minded people that are in your circle, right? Guys like us. Um, I think we have to exhibit that in our behaviors and in our actions and in our words, and I think we'll attract more people that are like-minded to us, that can be our 10,000 fans or 1,000 hardcore fans or our super fans or whatever. I've read all the books, but I think that's the first step. You know, guys, people identify with Venom, Punisher. Um, I mean, Morbius bombed, but it was made. This villainous sort of movie, Joker, Deadpool. People identify with this, you know. At one point, those guys were jobber characters that like were never supposed to amount to anything, and then they've eclipsed like the big four. You know, the big four was like Hulk, Superman, Spider Man, maybe Wolverine, right? Stuff like that. I know we're talking like in this superhero context, but it is like the
Well, I
parlance of our
kind of
time.
wanted to send it. I kind of wanted to bring it back down to earth in a way because, I sat here for the last 5 minutes just looking at myself and thinking like what
Hmm.
identity that the message that's being conveyed by not my words but by my appearance. And, you know,
Mm.
I thought about the war in Ukraine and that, like, right now I kind of look like with the green and my black hair and the way that I look like the leader of Ukraine in a little way. Like if I was to be on an army, that's the army that I would be on. But what I find most challenging is that I left my tribe of people to pursue knowledge and to get a better understanding of what actually is going on in the macro sense in the world. And that led me down a path that led me to complete chaos. And to see that if you went through a more traditional uh, exploration of the world through my reality, would be to have joined a military branch and then being told what the world looks like and should be. My exploration was of the lone wolf nature, more aligned with that of a CIA agent or a counterterrorist operative, than it was a grunt military individual that's supposed to just fall into line and then becomes a member of a cult that is then largely that you just sheep your life away and ignore the wolves, when I know more wolves in my life than I know sheep, because I'm constantly looking for wolves. I'm constantly, and so if that kind of is correlated to the question of good guys and bad guys,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know who the wolves are.
that's a great, that's another good framework for this is the difference between a wolf and a sheep, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't be any more different. Now, people are going to hear this and they're going to think wolf and they're going to think someone that steals from you and backstabs you and fucks your girl and fucks your girl's sister and pisses in your gas tank, steals from you, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, that's not to me a wolf. A wolf is someone who survives in a callous world on their own terms, right? Like that's to me a wolf versus a sheep, which is like living in a farm, comforting. Someone shaves you for you, feeds you at a certain time. You're a part of the herd. You don't even have to think. Where wolves have to think. They have no other choice but to think. So I do like that framework. Wolves and sheep.
I think that's why a lot of she-wolves end up calling male wolves dogs, because the dog has the heart of a wolf and really wants to be out there, chasing the coyotes and pursuing the other things that are deemed bad. But in reality, they are third generation dog, right? They're no different than the sheep, just as domesticated. Just need to just shut the hell up. You're not a wolf. I'm definitely not a CIA agent or a counterterrorist operative.
On that note, it's funny you mentioned that about the dogs versus the wolves, right? Like this domestication, because I was born as a feral cat that had to raise himself.
Right.
Not a lion, not a liger, not a tiger, not a mountain lion, not a cheetah, not etc. I was a feral cat that, like, on a good night would sleep in a box that I found, right? And then in my 30s became a domesticated cat. Almost declawed, almost defanged, almost neutered. And that's like suburban life. It's just what it fucking does to you in this concrete jungle. And up until very recently have I realigned with, and it has a lot to do with, I'm going to get in trouble here if someone like screen snaps this, but I've been reading my old journals and I've been seeing just like what a feral cat I actually am. And I don't want to go through all of it, but hundreds and hundreds of just manic, crazy pages.
Bring it to your left
like,
a little bit more.
Oh, I don't want to because people are going to screen snap it and see a bunch of crazy shit. But just right. I've been re-examining like who the fuck I am on this path of like reinvention, and right. I'm a fucking cat. I'm a feral, unkempt cat that can sleep outside for 3 weeks and be fine. And I do like to come in occasionally and clean myself up and shit in a box. Yeah, I do like that occasionally. I do like a poke bowl, right? Where I can eat that and feel good. But then I want to go back outside and chase a fucking squirrel. Like, that's who I am. And I feel like the internet almost sheepifies you, almost dogifies you, almost puts you in this category where you have to be a Cub Scout and be quiet and stay in line and da-da-da-da. Just passively consume, just consume. When deep down I want a werewolf. Deep down I want to go nuts. Deep down I want to be a feral cat on the internet. Dude, when it was the Wild Wild West, you could afford to do that. And the internet was fun and you could say something. There was almost an anonymity. Yeah. There's almost an anonymity that was there where you can afford to do that with no repercussions, and now everything's a repercussion. But if you really own your ferocity, I think that's attractive. And I think the numbers and the metrics and the rewards and what's supposed to come with that will follow. Because there's a lot of people who want to werewolf and run and escape the monotony of being a sheep, right?
Well, you know what they say about the president, right? They say that essentially the presidential position, which is the most supposedly the most powerful person in the world, is an scapegoat. And that's so interesting because there's like a control mechanism even for the president. An escaped goat, I'm taking it and putting it in the past term, of course, like someone that's being actively used as a puppet is an scapegoat. But if it's an escaped goat, what happened to this goat, and how did it get off on some wild journey that it shouldn't have been on? You know, and then like, you know, what is it with these MAGA Trumpers? They're trying to prop this Donald Trump up as the, you know, the perfect lion, the ringmaster's favorite lion that is almost messianic in a way, that he ends up being the savior. And I've been really dwelling on this because I recently watched a documentary, parts of a documentary called Straw Man, which is this documentary basically talking about the financial system and the Federal Reserve and how these things became a reality, and that even this concept of the crucifixion is tied to the straw man that deflects the crows. So I'm these things are very challenging to interpret. And has the internet made it more challenging? Absolutely, which goes back to why it's so difficult to express yourself, because if you end up expressing yourself, the bigger wolf is going to tell you you're a dog as well. Don't forget, you're a dog, I'm a wolf. And
You know what I say to that? You know what I say to that? If a bigger wolf, tells me that
yeah,
I'm a dog, that tells me that I'm a puppy, right?
yeah.
I say, "Ow!" That's what I say.
I would rather be the person that tells Knives, you're not a cat, you're a bear. And nobody wants to remind you that you're a bear, because bears are going through people's trash. They're doing feral shit.
Yeah,
But we're bears, man. We're bears. It's truth.
yeah.
If you go out and ask anybody, you're like a bear. But then it's like, damn, bear is associated with being a homosexual, not to being a heterosexual. You know? So then it's like, damn, all right, so what do these
Which I'm fine
words
with.
really mean?
Which I'm fine with.
What do they
I'm
mean?
fine with. You know, you said I was a bear. This brings me back to an example I heard of like a bear in a circus, right? How they're
Yeah,
trained.
that's what, you know,
Yes,
I set
and
that
there's
up
this
from the yeah.
yeah, there's a story that elephants are trained and domesticated and conditioned when they're pups, when they're little elephants, and they put them on a 6 foot rope, and they put the stake in the ground, and then the elephant grows up, and all it's known is this 6 foot rope that it's tied against into the stake in the ground, and it thinks, oh, I'm that small elephant, is what it thinks, that I can't just run and escape and just get the fuck out of here and pull that stake out of the ground and just go. But that's what happens to elephants. Like, they get conditioned into thinking that they're small. They minimize themselves because they're conditioned that way. They're trained that way. And I think that has happened to us at large. And we forget, whether if you're a bear, a lion, a tiger, oh my, or you're an elephant with this stake in the ground and you can't escape, deep down we want to go out and we want to just run, right? Don't we? I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm tired of just saying meow, licking my fur, and just waiting for someone to change my diaper or whatever. Like, I'm personally, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And you know, it's liberating because even like my tenor in this podcast is like a can that I've opened, and I feel like I can finally stretch out, and I haven't had this energy in a long time. And you really have to not just own that, but accept the fact that people are going to take it, misconstrue it, and hear bear and think homosexual or whatever, take it out of context, and that's fine. I'm okay with that, man. If it means that I get more clicks, more attention, more
Right.
clout, more
That's
money.
the Aiden Ross of it all, right? The more sus that you are, like, you know, I'm sure we've both contemplated this in the before, like the whole concept of pretending to be gay so that you can be with the girl that you love the most or you're most attracted to, right? So that you become harmless to them to the point at which you're not danger
Yeah,
for
that's like
them.
a trope, right? Like that goes back to Billy Wilder's "Some
Yeah.
Like It Hot," or like these men
Hmm.
dressing up as women to be next to Marilyn Monroe. Like it's a trope. I hear what you're saying. I've never needed to do that or have done that, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And well, there's only two parties to be a part of, right? At least we're in our paradigm. You can either be an elephant or a donkey. Those are your two choices. And if you make any other choice, your choice doesn't count. So, you know, would I would I rather be the laughing stock of the world or be, the elephant that can't seem to think that freedom is true? I guess I'll be the elephant. And, you know, I'll never be, let loose from that rope that ties me to the stake in the ground. I guess
Dude,
that's
this
the
is how
case.
this is how like red pill YouTube. I feel like this is how it happens. Like I've never really look if I'm being fucking honest. I have fucked with red pill YouTube. I have. I understand. All my leftist friends and all my damn friends fucking hate me right now if they've made it this far. But you know, you've heard of the manosphere, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've always had, I've always fucked with it a little bit because it's about, there's a toxic side to it, like there is with anything. There's a toxic side to people who love Deadpool a little too much, or Rick and Morty a little too much, right? And there's a toxic side to like this red pill manosphere. And as we're wrapping up here, I do want to say that I kind of fuck with it because the sentiment is unplugging from the matrix, and you're either a sim or you're out of the matrix, right? You're either a donkey or an elephant, right? You're either a sheep or a wolf. And I'd rather be unplugged from the matrix. I don't want to. I'm tired of the synthetic, fake zeros and ones steak, personally.
Mm-hmm. You left me a cliffhanger, so I'm not sure exactly, where to go with this. I mean, other than the fact that it's like
I feel like we
you
got to
once
the
said
end of
to
the
me that
rainbow.
you once said to me that you wanted to be Morpheus and unplug
I
others
still
from the
do.
Matrix.
I still do. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's who I am.
And there was something the other day that I was like, damn, no, Knives is not Morpheus. Morpheus is a program of the system that's trying to basically keep people in the system by perpetuating question that the answer is always resolved by what the architect states. There's really no character, and this is where I resonate with what Idris Elba and Method Man were saying. There is no character in that universe that breaks out of the mold unless what if exists. But if you're a sheep, you are blind to what if.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're a part of the degenerate society that wants to see Goku fuck Sailor Moon, you're not going to break out of the Matrix, because the Matrix is a paradigm that keeps you within the cage, that keeps you limited. But there's always a bigger cage. That's the whole prison planet, zeitgeist that is being broadcasted off planet by an Alex Jones. I don't know where to go from here. that's
I
that's
think
where
we
it's like,
got.
am I out of the Matrix? Will I ever be, freed?
I think the Matrix is a hot tub that people love to dip their toes into because the world is cold and isolating and miserable, and so we all want that hot tub. So can you exist in both? Maybe. Maybe you can. Maybe the answer isn't to be unplugged from the matrix, but to just realize that you're in the matrix, right? And I think as I fuck with that Morpheus energy because I want to unplug people to say, hey, just so you know, this is a sim. It's just sparking a little bit of self awareness. That's it. What people choose to do with that, they have their own free will. I'm not going to govern what they do. I'm not here to be your dad. I'm not here to be your guru. I'm not here to be your teacher. I'm here to just tell you, hey, this is a sim and it's artificial. Do with that what you will. Bye. That's me. But I think we've gotten to the end of the rainbow here, and thank you so much for indulging me on this topic, Trent Knox. For those that have made it this far, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It goes really, really far. Follow Trent Knox on all his things. Anything you want to plug, sir?
Thank you. No, that was an excellent, segue to finalizing and putting a red stamp and sending it off to the people out there on the other side of the headphones.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep a force field around your heart. And Trent and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.